Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Overwhelmed Brain.
One, two, three, four, five. Everybody in the world, let's go for a ride on the only show that'll help you discover what you need to do when you're feeling kind of blue. Yeah, the episode that we had last week, 75 was the number, I think. We talked healing, connecting, living like a leader, and as you continue, this show is getting sweeter. What you need to do for your self-help fix in this episode 76, a virtual high, a personal growth show, just in case you don't know. A little bit of happiness in your life, a little bit of laughter and peace of mind, a little bit of confidence is all you need, a little bit of comfort is what I bring, a little bit of teaching is what I do, a little motivation just for you, a little bit of knowledge is what I know, a little bit of you completes the show. Rising higher than mainstream thinking. Are you annoyed by affirmations? When someone comes up to you and says, "Think positively," do you go, "Okay, I'll do it. Thank you for steering me in the right direction"? If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then start the journey of incredible learning and growth so that you can create the life you've always wanted now. Hello, this is Paul Coliani, host of The Overwhelmed Brain, the personal growth show for the critical thinker. On this show, I discuss practical, down-to-earth steps to help you improve your mood and keep you sane in this powerful journey we call life. We'll talk about why we do the things we do and what we can do to reach higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress and overwhelm. My goal is to help you become empowered so that you can create the life you want. And part of creating the life you want is having the energy to do so. If you want to feel stronger, get healthier, maybe even lose a few pounds and find that energy, I highly recommend you listen to Jay Scott at fulldisclosurefitness.com. It's not the interviews with fitness experts that make it great. It's how he approaches physical fitness just like I do, with critical thinking. He's practical and he wants you to get on the fast track to the body you've always dreamed of. If you've been wanting to trim down and lose weight or bulk up to gain muscle, check out his free report called Nutrition 101. It'll show you how to calculate your calories so that you can get a head start on your goals today. Head over to fulldisclosurefitness.com and listen to his show. And as a reminder, whenever you hear me talk about someone's product, service, or show, know that I have personally checked into their credibility and the value they provide. All right, today's quick quote is from Maya Angelou, or Angelou, I think. Whatever you want to do, if you want to be great at it, you have to love it and be able to make sacrifices for it. I'd like to add to that quote that sometimes what appears to be loss or sacrifice is really a blessing in hindsight. So in last week's super long episode, we learned a few things that I didn't have time to summarize. So before we dive into the conclusion of that session today, I'm going to share the learnings from last week this week. After that, I'll play the rest of last week's coaching call. One of the things we learned is to be the brick or the sponge. And this is in reference to when the other person in your life is losing control or very upset. There's a point of upset where it seems like the one you love won't be able to return and may be acting erratic. And at this point, there are three options. One, you can be upset back, causing you both to feed off each other, escalating the moment into who knows what. Two, you can be a brick wall of support. This involves conveying a positive, calm, assertive energy towards them, letting them know that you've got everything under control and there's no need to be upset. Now, this is sort of tricky because you really have to be calm, yet assertive. You do this with tough love, and you do this with authority so that they feel like someone will take care of them, sort of like a parent would love and support a suffering child. When someone is so upset that they can't be reasoned with, it really is like they are a child who doesn't know how to handle the situation. When you are the brick wall, you tell them, everything is fine. I'm right here and I will take care of you. And if they are still reacting, be more firm. You need to stop right now. I'm here. I love you. And it's time to stop this. You are going to be okay. Now, this does take some practice because many times you could be emotionally triggered by something they do or say. But if you can stay conscious, focused, and completely there for them as the one who will, quote, take care of things, then they may just relax and give in, knowing that you're there to help. And number 3, the last option, is to be the sponge, that person who simply opens up and lets them cry, kick, and scream, or whatever they need to do, unless it's harming you, of course. The sponge will say, go ahead, what else are you upset about? And then just listen. This is when you are completely receptive, no matter how upset the person seems to be getting. Being open, loving, and non-judgmental during this time lets the other person express all they want without fear of repercussion. And that's really what this is all about. Options 2 and 3 are about alleviating the other person's fear, whereas option 1, where you simply get upset back, is now adding fuel to the fire and exacerbating the situation. By responding to their emotional upset with emotional upset, it will usually lead to hurt feelings and can even build resentment over time. Option 2, where you are the brick wall, may seem like you're coming at them with force, but what's really happening is that you are creating a safe zone for them. Both the brick wall and the sponge create that safe zone for the other person so that their upset disintegrates on its own. For example, have you ever been in a situation that scared you, but someone came along and took care of things? Like being bullied when someone comes along and puts the bully in his or her place? It's that feeling of being saved. That safe zone that you can create for your loved ones when they're upset saves them in a way. You don't stick around if you're in danger, but when they are extremely upset, be the brick wall or the sponge and create that zone of safety. Their upset will likely die down very shortly. This goes along with another lesson from last week, which is to allow the first person who gets upset to, quote, have the floor. Now, what this means is that at the first sign you notice the emotional upset in the other person, when they're getting emotionally triggered, try not to get triggered yourself. One of the most common communication problems in relationships of any sort is when one person gets triggered and the other one gets triggered too. In other words, John gets upset at something Jane does, so in turn, Jane gets defensive and is now also triggered. And just so we're on the same page, when I say triggered, I just mean that something sets them off. Something they see, hear, or think triggers an emotional reaction in them. And when two people are triggered at the same time, they will go into battle and fight for dominance. However, when one backs off, they can stay focused and help the other person through their trigger by being either the brick or the sponge. It doesn't always work, but it can work most of the time. Like, it may not work if there are unforgivable circumstances involved. This might create a reaction in someone so intense that there's nothing you can do but leave. However, just like a martial artist is trained not to get emotionally triggered when someone is a threat, you can be the warrior and stay conscious and focused so that you do not get into trigger mode. And you can love and support the other person until they are calm or at least calmer. And then after that, if you need to express, you now have the floor. You get to express yourself and tell them what's on your mind. Now, this isn't a flawless system, but it does work, and it's exactly what I do when I can show support for the people in my life. So the next lesson from last week is that there's got to be give on both sides when you and the other person are at extreme opposite ends of the spectrum. In the coaching session, I told Michael he needed to take more risks, and I told Daria that she needs to be more cautious so that they can meet in the middle. Michael approaches the world with cautious optimism, and Daria approaches it with optimistic caution, if that makes any sense. In other words, Michael probably makes up possible consequences and fears that they'll happen, so he may not take a leap of faith, whereas Daria takes bigger leaps of faith and may not think too far ahead of where she'll land. They both have a different philosophy on how to approach life, and both philosophies have worked for them up to this point. But in order to get along with someone else that you want to spend a lot of time with, both will have to give a little. They'll have to. It's like having 3 movies from which to choose: scary, action, and comedy. One person likes scary, the other one likes action, and they both could watch comedy if they had to. So they can both give a little so that neither is completely dissatisfied and watch the comedy. Does that make sense? I mean, can you think of something that you vehemently disagree about with someone? Can you think of anything that you could give in a little about? Anything at all? What can happen when you give in a little is that the other person then sees that you've done so and might even give in a little too. This brings both of you closer to an agreement, or at least a compromise. But it does take the first step from one of you. The next lesson is what you dislike in others is typically what you need to build up in yourself. Michael said he did not like incompetence in others, which means there is something within him that he feels incompetent about. If you find that you call many people stupid, what do you feel stupid about in yourself? Michael was projecting what was going on inside of him onto others. Now, life can be a real challenge when you refuse to see others as your mirror. What you most dislike about someone else is usually something you need to work on in yourself. Now, there will be traits and qualities that you don't like in others simply because they're offensive, for sure. But do an internal check whenever you feel a judgment come up about someone else. When you do this, you'll figure out what you may need to work on in yourself. I realize it sounds like what I'm saying is that the only way to, quote, fix someone is to actually fix yourself. Well, if you're thinking that, then you're pretty smart, because that's exactly what I'm saying. The last lesson, or it's actually an exercise really, is to remember to use the magic pill analogy when you're feeling any type of negative emotion and can't figure out why. The analogy is this: when you feel bad, pretend there's a magic pill in your hand, and then ask yourself, if this pill could do something very specific to help me feel better right now, what would it do? And then really consider the answer that comes up. Try it on, so to speak. That day I was driving home and couldn't figure out why I felt sad. I did the magic pill exercise. Well, I didn't immediately do the exercise because the first thought I had was, why do I feel sad? And I couldn't come up with an answer. So then I did the exercise. If this pill could do anything, what would it do right now so that I would no longer feel sad? And my answer was, it would put me in bed and allow me to catch up on sleep. And I thought about what it would be like to sleep. My sadness disappeared. I, quote, tried it on. I tried out the idea of sleeping in my mind just to find out if it would make me feel better. And just by thinking it, it alleviated my sadness. Now, when you go through the motions of imagining what it would be like if that magic pill created exactly what you needed, you actually create resources in your mind that you didn't have before, because you have to think about what it would take for that particular thing to happen. You are manufacturing solutions that would not have appeared otherwise. It's a great technique and has helped me many times. Now, if the negative feeling doesn't go away, just ask it again. What else would the pill do? You want to make sure you get a very specific answer, too. Something that is measurable and tangible. You want something that leads to an outcome, not an outcome in itself. For example, you can't just say, I want to feel peace. You need to state what it would take to reach that state of peace. Something specific. Make it up. If you come up with, if my friend would call and lend me $5,000, I think I'd feel a lot better. Your friend calling to lend you money may or may not happen, but the thought does start your wheels turning. Think of more things that would also make you feel better. Soon you'll be manufacturing solutions left and right. And who knows, maybe the exact answer will simply materialize. So anyway, let's finish the call we had last week with Michael and Daria. Not to worry, it's shorter than last week, but finally concludes our session. And then afterwards, I'll talk about a review that someone wrote in iTunes about this show and what I thought about it. And FYI, it's not particularly positive. Let's jump into part 2 of Michael and Daria's couples coaching session now. thinking, one of the things that came to my mind, like in our last conversation, or one of them, you said, I can't stand when she leaves the windows open. She knows I don't like when she leaves the windows open. If you were to go with the flow, you'd be like, well, whatever. If it happens, it happens. If we get broken into, I guess that's just the way it is. That's kind of going with the flow. It doesn't mean you're going to do it all the time. It just means, you know what? God, life is short.
But I don't want to my fear is disappointing other people. I didn't want to disappoint. I don't want to
No, but
disrespect.
I think it's important to be, of course.
And she totally goes with the flow.
No, I think you cannot be so chill. Of course you do have to plan. And I think you do have a first sense of planning, but at the same time, I think you do have to, and I have learned it the hard way, really, because of beating myself up and becoming depressed because of that. And so I have learned that you do have to be more, I guess, chill in a way, or just more forgiving towards yourself and more kind towards yourself, and just not beat yourself up about every single thing and situation, because I think things will get taken care of. Just believe that they will, for the better of all of us, I think, because really if you beat yourself up, you're just gonna make yourself miserable, people around you miserable. Bad things will happen, but everything outside of those bad things that will happen inevitably, you can just be more chill and enjoy the good things and just hope for the best. And I feel really your sense of mind, if you hope for the best, better things will happen in a way. So I think it's important.
He's laughing at me. No, I think that's fantastic advice, Daria. At the same time, when somebody has a lot of built-in negativity, or not built-in, but very intrinsically deep negativity, it's going to come out whether you try to shut the light off or not. That switch that says, good example is, you break up with somebody and you're still in love with them, or they break up with you. You're like, what? You're breaking up with me? I love you so much. What? And then they go, what do you mean? Just turn off the switch of love. Just stop loving me. It's not something that's easy to do sometimes, because it's so ingrained. It's nice to think happy thoughts. Just think positive, because
I know, that's true, but I think because for me, I think now I sound like I'm so chill, but the thing is, I have never been like that my whole life, because my mom, she suffered from depression, and I suffered from depression in college, and Michael witnessed that. I was so upset, so sad. So I think it's a choice that each of us makes. Everyone can be happy and more peaceful. I'm not saying it's easy. For me, it's more just experiencing things that are really hard, for example, that hysterical moment. In those moments, I really learned how it kind of pushes me towards being more peaceful, I guess, those it's not easy, but it's I don't know, it's not easy, but so I don't know what I'm saying.
I got a quick question for Daria. My question for you, Daria, is right now, you were depressed at one time, correct?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself ever getting depressed again? Are you at a point where you're like, you know what? Because I was depressed for 2 years. I got to a point where I said, when I finally got out of that depression, I said, oh my God, I will never go back there again. I will never go back there again, because I experienced it. I hated it. Don't like being there. And so whenever the first sign of anything that remotely resembles depression comes into my life, I go, whoa, I stop. I stop everything. I don't care what I'm doing, because I've been there and never want to go back again. So as soon as I detect anything like that, I stop and process it. I explore it. I don't care what I'm doing. I'll leave work for the day, whatever. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, because I have a higher value of myself. I have more self-esteem. I have more self-worth. I know I'm worthy of more than that numb state. So that's why I was curious if you reached a threshold of feeling bad, that you just got to that point where it popped and you said, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm just going to enjoy life and go with the flow. So maybe not for you, but that's what happened to me. That's what, when you were telling that story, I was thinking of my own story of a popping point It's like,
No, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a popping point. It just happens maybe for me, like also like I have a lot of fear. So I'm kind of like Michael also. I'm very scared of things. And I'm very like, oh, like, is this relationship going to end? Especially when we got to know each other and we were like so like worried, like, oh, I'll go to San Francisco. I also think like, oh, that means like the relationship will end, and just a lot of things where I'm scared. And like, I'm scared of this. I'm scared of that. But then like, I have always these like moments that happen to me in life. It's like a popping point, and then I look. But but they helped me like forward, because it may be like a bad thing, but it helped me like learn. And so one thing, for example, okay, so I kind of like, I think it was interesting. So I'm a new driver and I could barely drive, but I decided like this one time I'm going to drive on the freeway by myself. It was about 1 or 2 months ago. And it was already like dark, but I'm like, I kind of like want to try driving on the freeway today, and I wear contacts. And as I was driving on the freeway, I could barely drive even like outside of the freeway. I was like, one of my contacts like fell out, and I have really bad vision. I can't even walk without my contacts. And I'm like in the middle of the freeway, one of my contacts falls out. I see, and my other eye doesn't see well. And basically I'm driving like, and I can't see anything. And I'm in the like leftmost lane, and I need to exit because I can't drive anymore. So I was like, oh my God. I was like literally praying to God in the car. And I look onto the road, and I'm driving in between like 2 lanes. I'm not in this lane, not in this lane. And all the cars around me are beeping. I don't know how there was no police. No one noticed me, but I ended up somehow magically exiting the freeway. And right after I exited, I didn't get into a road. I just got into like a very dark, small kind of residential area. I stopped the car right away, and then I just put on my glasses. So it was fine. But I was like, that was for me personally. Like I used it as a like learning experience, because before I was like, I'm never going to drive in the freeway. I'm so scared. But after that, I'm like, you know what? This happened to you, and somehow, like, whether it's God or some higher power or whatever it is, positive energy, it just took you out of that freeway. You were safe. Nothing happened to the car. You were blind, but you got out. You were able to stop right away, put on glasses, come back home. And from that moment on, I only take freeway. If I have to get somewhere, before I would always like residential, like streets, and it takes like hours to get there. Now, only freeway. This girl drives only freeway, because I'm like, in that moment, I also just learned like, what are you scared of? When you like try something, like there will always be like force of the universe supporting you. If you're like, if you're brave, like reasonably brave, not like brave as in like jump out of a window, but in good things, there will always have this positive energy, have this braveness around you, spread it around you to Michael, to, everyone. So for me, yeah, it's like these popping points, and it actually is kind of bad things, unpleasant things, traumatic things in a way. But then when you learn from them, then you kind of like go forward. So kind of like, it's not one thing. It's just like different things that happen like to you throughout the life, and you kind of like learn.
That's a great story. And it's,
scary story.
No, it's a great story, because it's exactly what I teach. It's when you bring more of what you're afraid of into your life, it expands your comfort zone. It has no choice, because you get to the point where you go, oh, I survived that. Oh, it's like my fear of spiders kind of went away after the biggest, nastiest spider went down my shirt trying to run away from me. Because I screamed like a girl. I screamed so loud. It was in my truck. This was a few years ago. And I'm brushing up my chest, and I'm like, oh, and it was, I don't want to explain it and scare all the arachnophobes, but it was really nasty looking. And after I brushed them off and jumped out of my truck, luckily I wasn't moving. I stood there for a second and, breathing. And I realized, okay, what just happened? Why was I so scared? And then as I was thinking about it, I realized, God, that spider ran from me as if I was death. He was so scared. So I actually put myself in the spider's position. Mm-hmm. And I said, God, that guy was so scared. Mm-hmm. And my fear of spiders kind of went away, because I realized that he was just trying to run away from me. He just wanted to survive. He didn't want to be on me. He just wanted to get the heck away from me. He didn't want to be killed. And so just the fact that it was just a giant spider, and I brushed it off, and I put myself in his shoes for a minute, it made me so much more accepting of them. And it's funny, spiders will show up in my life saying, could you please take me outside? they'll show up in the middle of the floor and they'll just be staring at me or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I don't know if I just have this harmonic energy with spiders now, but, when they want to be saved, when I'm with people who squash spiders, they'll usually appear right in front of me, like on the floor and just stop. And I'll go, all right, let me get a glass because I'm not touching you. And I'll take them outside.
That makes, yeah, that's exactly like with that freeway accident, like with that freeway, not accident, how luckily, incident. I literally like when I stopped, when I was able to get out of the freeway, I mean, I broke down crying because it was really like scary, but I told myself, what are you scared of? This is crazy. And you just got out of that. Like, what else are you going to scare? Because,
You lived, you
because I was,
survived.
yeah, because I was scared and it kind of like happened during that time where I would wait for Michael at home because I kind of like, oh, if I go by myself, is it going to be bad for our relationship or whatever? And then I'm like, what are you scared of? Things are just more chill. It's not that this bad thing will happen, this bad thing will happen. You really just take it more like, you know, kind of like, yeah. So it really, for me, it was awesome. I guess kind of like for you with that spider. So now you're friends with spiders.
Yes, sort of. Yeah. Michael, how you doing, bud?
Doing all right, doing all
The last one was to Michael, so now it's.
But there's a feeling that's coming up. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
It's always good.
Always
Bring it up.
Okay, but I don't take it the wrong way. But as I'm hearing her speak, and it's tied to other things, I'm just like, how come like this is a coaching session? Our relationship and me, but when you're talking, it's just like you're sharing your epiphanies. Like it's always about what's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, Michael, before we started talking. And sometimes I will focus on one of you and it'll appear that I'm siding with one of you. But I know that when one person changes, the other one changes. So today probably ended up being about you more, but not all of it. And in the end, she gets one little aspect of something that I get. Or, I mean, she gets she gets the popping point. So we kind of had rapport there and had our conversation. But I actually thought about that before we even talked. I mean, like 20 minutes ago, I thought we seem to be focused on Michael today. And it really doesn't matter who I focus on because once one person changes, the other person changes. However, maybe a feeling comes up for you. It's like, is everything just wrong with me in this relationship and I'm the one that needs to change? Or is Paul not seeing? There's another thing. Is Paul not seeing the problems that I'm pointing out about Daria that he needs to see here? Because she keeps getting on the microphone and saying, well, I went through this and I'm fine and I'm getting better and I'm this and that. I see everything. Believe me. I observe everything. I see everything. I don't look past what's happening. And I hear in her words, what I do is tend to hone in on what is the most prevalent thing that will change the dynamic of the relationship, regardless of who's right or who's wrong. Unfortunately, sometimes it's you, Michael. But at the same time, sometimes, and this is one of my secrets that I never tell people, sometimes it'll appear that I'm working on you, Michael, to avoid any resistance from the other person. And I just want you to be that wall or that sponge, be that brick or that sponge when I do things like that, because it's really not about either of you as individuals. Because my teachings, I guess you could call them, are universal. And somebody has to hear them. And somebody has to kind of be the focal point of them. So if that makes sense, if you know what I'm getting at, that's probably what was happening. I know it was happening today. Does that make you feel any better?
A lot better.
Okay.
I'm glad that I voiced what I was feeling.
I'm glad you did too.
I learned it from her. Voice. Even if you annoy the other person, a voice.
Then I feel like in a way it's fair because I feel like in the last couple of sessions, that's how I felt. Like, I feel like, oh, is everything wrong with me? Because it was like, I have to get fixed.
was
Oh,
about
we were
my
talking-
anger. This episode is Michael's anger towards his.
No, but I felt like-
part two,
like-
part three.
No, but I
Be
feel like
part
in
6.
our but I feel like in our very first session, like I think like I felt like,
But
I don't remember
it was
when,
me
but I
had to
felt
be
like,
loving rock to you, and it's like it was me who had.
yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, I have also, like, felt like that I felt like, oh, is everything wrong with me? Because I'm the one who gets angry at Michael. So I feel like it's not just you who feels that way. So,
Well,
I mean, I
yeah.
feel like I have felt that way too.
Yeah.
So I
that's
guess, yeah, I have been through it all. I felt
That's
it all. Just to back up what Michael just said.
No, it's true. And I will focus on one person, but it's always meant for a broader perspective because we learn from each other. And I think you understand where I'm going. And don't get me wrong, you guys, both of you are really, really messed up. No, I'm kidding. Love your,
Wait, are you really kidding?
I love your expression.
They're really serious.
That's not so, like, serious and persuasive.
You're just kidding, right?
So are you.
Yes, I am. Of course I'm kidding.
We are.
No, I have to have good rapport with you in order to say something like that.
Okay, good.
I hope I didn't lose the rapport from that comment, but no, I sometimes introduce, if we're going to talk about my coaching style for a minute, I sometimes introduce, or a lot, comedic elements to the coaching because what happens is you get into a pattern. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm this, I'm fearful, and I'm directing all of this towards you. And then I'll say, you know what? You guys are really good at passing the microphone back and forth. And then you both laugh. And what that does is break the pattern. So the next time you get into that state, you might think of that one comment I made, which is very helpful when you're starting to get upset. It's called a pattern break or a state break. So that's another little secret that I'll put in there. So it's neither here nor there. Probably doesn't have to air, but it's just kind of fun to talk about for a second.
I think we're good, and really appreciate this.
How you feeling, both of you? Any better?
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling pretty good before.
Yeah, strangling. You feel like strangling?
No, I mean,
I often wonder if once we hang up, if you guys like have a out and out fight.
no. I mean, there's always gonna be other.
But I mean, I feel
Other
like
stuff.
Michael still feels like he's not like, when we were talking about like my car incident and like spiders, I feel like Michael felt like left out, and I feel like he felt like disrespected, or I feel like he felt like our.
No, I'm sorry. That's not it.
No, I
That's
think-
not.
I think
I voiced what I was feeling right
Yeah,
now.
I think he expressed it.
That's like you commonly fear about.
Oh, remember that? What we lack in
Okay,
ourselves?
Projecting.
What's up?
I feel like you still felt like that thing that you tend to feel with me, like you feel like it's all about me or something like that.
Yeah,
I
but
guess I'm wrong.
how should we view, like, she's like, oh, I'm gonna go to San Francisco, and I know it's back to that, but
Tell me. What?
it's still in the back of my mind. It's like, how, will she more and more include me in her thought process?
Well, you got to remember that sometimes things just come to her at the last minute. Tell me if I'm wrong, Daria. But her thinking ahead isn't as fine-tuned as yours.
I get it. Okay.
So
Okay.
sometimes it's just not going to happen, and it's probably not intentional. However, what might happen, which I believe will happen actually, but I can't promise, what might happen is that as you develop yourself, Michael, and it works both ways. As you develop yourself, she is going to respond differently to you. She's going to feel differently towards you. She's going to feel empowered to, for some reason, want to share things with you when they come up. There's going to be things that happen. Like I said, there's going to be a dynamic change when one of you starts developing in yourself. So it's possible that her makeup is, wow, I want to go to San Francisco. I'm going to pack tomorrow and take off. Hopefully she's not.
No, I'm not like that. No, because I'm not saying I never want to go to San Francisco, but neither am I like going to pack. I mean, I need to plan for whatever I will,
Sure.
and I need to talk to Michael. Like, so I'm not going to like pack and leave tomorrow.
I think one of the reasons I let you guys continue talking in heated moments like the way you were today and the last time?
Because it boosts ratings.
Besides the audience that we build. No, it's because there's a lot of things that go unsaid when you are alone. And when I come into the picture, I provide a safety zone. So you guys can say probably more of what's on your mind. And when this stuff does come out, what it does is let the other person know what's going on in their head. Because when you're triggered and you're talking alone, it's too isolated and you're back and forth reacting. But when you have this third party involved and you get to hear her kind of talk to me about you, and you get to hear him kind of talk to you about whatever I just said.
To you.
So you're saying you're gonna move in downstairs?
You know, I might have to.
I'm over here. Daria's.
I might have to, but what that does though is you get to hear different things from the other person that you wouldn't normally hear in a regular conversation. And what that does is the next time you get into an argument, you go, wow, Michael said this to Paul in a way that I get it now. I might want to be more conscientious when I do X, Y, Z, and vice versa. So I think it's important to have a safe place to let it all out, vent it out, say the hurtful things. I know it's not always the healthiest advice to do that, but when you get it all out in a place of safety, and then someone like me, or if you're both evolved enough to go, okay, let's both step back and just kind of, get back together and connect again. When you have a place that's safe to reconnect and you were able to say what you wanted to say, then it becomes a helpful healing agent in supporting each other and in your future, in your relationship, if that makes sense. You're really stretching my brain tonight. All right.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
How's that?
Okay. It's good.
All right. Well, my last piece of advice, let me think. My last piece of advice, before I open up a can of worms, is remember that everything you want in life doesn't mean it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. It's just something you want. What Daria wants is to travel. Is it going to happen? Maybe, probably, yes, but it's not happening now. So enjoy today, enjoy what you got now, and see what you got now. Live in the present moment and see what's right in front of you. Even when you're totally stressed out at work or stressed out on the highway or wherever you guys are, it's a good analogy that Daria had, that when you stop, pull over and stop and go, what is really threatening me right now? Is this a threat? Think about the threats that are going on. My personal belief about fear and anger is that it all comes down to a fear of death. When you break everything down, you just fear death or maybe pain, like physical pain, because it's so primal. And if we didn't have language, all we had was feelings, and we went by our feelings, we would feel some sort of fear based on us wanting to exist in this world. It's like, I don't want to die, therefore I am feeling fear. But when you bust through that fear, like we were talking about the popping moment, then it broadens your comfort zone. It makes it wider. So I don't want to repeat myself, but that's my last piece of advice with another, how long is this? With a 2-hour call. Not too bad.
We always do 2-hour sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't do something in 40 minutes. No way.
That's how we tricked you.
Oh, that was fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for being honest. And, yeah, that's my number one value, or at least up there, is honesty. I love it when people are honest. And, just like you said, Michael, when you said, now I'm getting this feeling, you guys are talking and you're siding with her. What's going on here? All right,
And I was honest too. I was like, don't call me psychotic. You cannot.
I called you psychotic. He called you hysterical.
Oh, hysterical. Never mind. Wow.
So you're saying like, just clarify everything that I want. I want to get this book done. I want to, expand the business in the pharmacy. I want to make more money. And what's the latter part of that?
It just know that it's either going to happen or it's not, but you don't base, like I was kind of referring to maybe her wanting to go to San Francisco. Maybe there's a little fear and you're like, oh, she wants to go to San Francisco. I won't be able to stay and build this business. And it doesn't matter because right now it's not happening. So if you want to do something in the future, support each other. Hey, I'll support you writing your book. Hey, I'll support you going to San Francisco. Maybe you can go there, maybe not. I don't know if it's going to happen, but right now it's not. So I got to, work on today. It's just living in the moment. It's living in the present instead of putting all this fear in the future. Well, we can't do this. Obviously that's never going to work out because I want to stay here. You never know what's going to happen. I thought I was going to be married forever. And then one day she left. I'm like, oh my God.
Are you going to leave me, Daria?
Well, that's one of your fears.
One day, are you just going to leave me?
No, but that's like your fears.
That's a fear. And then she goes to San Francisco. It's
but you can.
That's his fear that I'll leave him, that I'll go to San Francisco and I'll leave him. And I'm like, but we're in a relationship that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But
believe me, when you guys are there for each other and supporting each other and loving each other, you're not going to want to be apart. You're going to find a way. So that's why it's.
Do you hear that, Daria?
I know, yeah.
But it doesn't mean she's not going to leave. It could mean a number of things. You can't put all this future fear out there without knowing all the circumstances. You could win the lottery tonight and move to San Francisco. There's any possibility could happen.
No.
What you're doing is basing a future event on the circumstances that you have today. And when you do that, you create fear. Today, I don't have enough money. I'm still not running the pharmacy the way I just had this and this and that. So there's no way in 6 months that's going to happen. There's just no way. And so you build this future fear of something that can't happen based on circumstances today. But I guarantee you in a week or two, circumstances change. In a month, in 6 months, you just never know. That's why it's, for me, I like to go with the flow. You know what? I've been through so many breakups. I'm now in a relationship knowing that, hey, you know what? She could find something wrong with me and leave. That's just the way it is. And the more I accept that, the more closer I am to her for some reason. And the more closer she is to me because there's none of that. I'm in this fear mode and I'm kind of clingy. And because I used to be clingy and I used to be really long time ago, possessive and jealous and there's all these little things. So I think did I answer your question?
Very well. Very well. I just need to re-listen to it. That's all.
All right, there you have it. Michael and Daria once again going through the trials, tribulations, and hopefully breakthroughs of their life together. One of the most important takeaways from this episode isn't really relationship advice at all. It's more personal. It's the part about reaching the threshold of what you don't want to experience. The same process has happened to me several times in life where I reached a threshold, that breaking or popping point with my negative emotions, and suddenly I didn't feel bad anymore. This is the worst case scenario I usually talk about. When you allow yourself to experience the worst case scenario, you have a breakthrough because you break down, if that makes sense. For Daria, she broke down in the car because she was panicking that she couldn't see. She was finally able to pull off the road and get her glasses on, but what she noticed was that she experienced a worst case scenario. It may not have been the worst case scenario, but it was bad enough where her panic reached a breaking point. Once she realized that she survived a very bad situation, she suddenly had no fear of driving on the freeway any longer. That's what happens when you experience something so scary and powerful. Regular life seems so much easier. This happened when I went broke and found out what it was like to go to the soup kitchen every morning. It happened when I was in the desert and my car broke down and I had to abandon it and thousands of dollars worth of possessions just to make it home. This also happened when I realized how much hatred I had inside of me for all the years I felt tortured and scared from my alcoholic stepfather, and I burst into tears yelling how much I hated him. After each one of those events, I went beyond the negative feelings and came through the other side. It's like you're driving a spaceship and getting sucked into a black hole. The fear builds and builds and builds, and suddenly you're sucked in. But when you survive, it's an awakening. Each time it happened in my life, something changed about me. I had much less fear and anxiety. The bad stuff happened and I made it out alive. And that strengthened my confidence and decreased my fears. After I experienced being poor, I found a job that allowed my then wife and I to move out of her mom's apartment and into our own place in another state. After my car broke down, I learned how to let go of attachments and be at peace, living minimally. And after I had that experience crying and releasing all those years of pain about my stepfather, I was able to let him go in all ways so that he didn't bother me any longer. And my depression disappeared too. Know that what you resist persists. The fear you feel when you don't want something to happen is going to be there until you accept that it actually could and probably will happen. It doesn't mean it will actually happen. It just means you've accepted that it will happen. What this does is make life easier because it eliminates resistance. Once resistance is eliminated, so are your fears. And once your fears are eliminated, so is your resistance. Walking through life without resistance is so freeing. This is why I wanted to emphasize this point today. You deserve a life without resisting what is or what could be. I know it's hard. You can't be completely immune to everything that happens in life, but you can get a head start so that when things do happen, you aren't set back as much as you would have been had you not been prepared. When you accept things that can and will go wrong, then you've done the mental preparation you need to do, and that's all you can do. You can never predict everything, but you can at least accept that anything is possible. And of course, that works in the positive as well as the negative. Everything you don't want to happen in life doesn't mean it's going to happen or not, but if it's not happening now, then enjoy what you have now. Even when you're stressed out somewhere along the road of life, pull over and stop and think about what really is threatening you right now. How bad is it? How much worse can it get? How much worse than that? Visit the worst case scenario in your mind and think about all the different ways it could go down. By the time you're done, you'll probably feel better because our brains can come up with some pretty terrible but unlikely futures. And when it does that, we start to feel bad. And then we think of something worse, and what we just felt bad about doesn't feel as bad as it once did. When you keep thinking about how much worse it can get, then what really happens will be a walk in the park. And even the process of thinking like this helps you come up with solutions that may not have been there before. I know it's not any fun to think about bad stuff happening to you or your loved ones, but it can be healing. It can also be exactly what you need to help you resolve a problem. And by all means, if this type of thinking puts you into a terrible place that you just can't get out of, think of getting help from someone. I realize there are those of you out there that may not be able to think of the worst case scenario because you've already been through worst case scenarios that you haven't yet gotten over. This is a thought process that you need to use with care, of course. Now, when you're not thinking of the worst case scenario, do your best to see a future not based on the circumstances of today, but on the knowledge that you've survived all this time and you'll keep on moving forward because that's what you do. You have no clue what good or bad fortune is coming, but the good fortune has just as much chance to exist as the bad. So keep your mind open and imagine a future where you'll always have the resources you need to get through the situations that come up. Now, before we end today's episode, I want to talk about a review that this show received in iTunes. This review read as follows. I've written a review for this podcast before. That was when my only problem was that I liked the episodes without the interviews better. Now I feel that most of the episodes are interviews or coaching sessions. I like the podcast better when it's just Paul sharing his own experiences to make a point. Well, first off, thank you for your honest review. I am so grateful that you took the time to write this. The feedback I get on the show is, quite frankly, almost always positive, so I've been wanting to hear some critical feedback for a while. Secondly, I completely agree with you. When I stopped doing interviews several months ago, it was a big relief. The interviews never go as planned, and I'm getting to know the guests during the show, so it can be sometimes awkward for sure. I've enjoyed every guest I've had on, but certainly coordinating and preparing for an interview involves more logistics than doing a regular solo episode. And as for the coaching sessions, I'm sure there are others just like you who are saying the same thing, like, all right, enough of Michael and Daria. But I've also received emails from people telling me they like the coaching shows because they relate to the problems that are talked about. It's sort of reality TV, not that I'm shooting for that whatsoever. The coaching shows just happen to be about real life with me there to guide people through their challenges. But I get your message for sure. Sometimes I stick an episode on where I get interviewed. That may turn some of you off as well. But there's a reason for every single show I air. And when you aren't familiar with the reasons, you might miss some of the elements of the show that were meant specifically for you. Just like in this coaching session today, I told Michael in so many words that I may be talking to him about him, but the message is also getting through to Daria. In fact, sometimes I will talk directly to one person in order to teach another person who may not believe it applies to them. The thing is, when I am in teacher mode like I am right now, what I say may not seem like it applies to you, so you might tune out or turn it off. But is it because you are bored and already know this stuff, or resisting something that you may need to hear? I mean, it's entirely possible that some of you know this stuff already and are just bored with the content. After all, if you know how to turn a screw with a screwdriver already, why would you need to be taught to do that once again? To continue along this analogy, what if there was a nuance in turning that screw that made the job go faster and easier? Would you want to know? Maybe you wouldn't, but I bet most people would be curious to know what that nuance was. That's the thing with a show like this, is that I may be talking to you specifically, or I could be talking to someone else because maybe your challenges aren't the same as the person I'm talking to. But I guarantee there is always something to learn in every episode. And I'm not challenging this review at all. Like I said, I agree with it. I enjoy doing the solo shows more than anything, and I will continue to do so as we move forward. Sure, there'll be the occasional interview or coaching call, but even those might have one word or phrase that could help you with a specific situation in your life. I had a boss once that I really couldn't stand. He was annoying, aggressive, and kind of mean to a few of my coworkers. But he knew how to do my job better than I did, at least on the technical side of things. So even though I really didn't like him and didn't want to be around him or listen to him, I chose to keep my mind open. I knew that a lot of stuff coming out of his mouth was, quite frankly, going to piss me off in some way. But I also knew that if I chose to tolerate the times when he irritated me, that I would learn extremely valuable gold nuggets of information from his vast knowledge of the technology I worked on back then. He was incredibly smart, but also a jerk. But I learned that even jerks can be teachers. It's just a matter of letting the garbage bounce off of you and savoring the teachings as they come. So listen for those gold nuggets of information, even from people you don't want to hear from. It raises your toleration levels and opens your mind to more learning than ever before. It doesn't mean you want to hang out and be friends with people you don't like. It just means if you're going to be in the same room with someone like that anyway, you might as well learn what you can. So to the reviewer who left that 3-star review in iTunes, thank you. I'm so honored that you took the time to write what was on your mind. Most people would just walk away and say nothing, but taking the time to write a review shows that you care. I appreciate you. The show will go on with and without interviews, and with and without coaching sessions, and even more surprises are coming your way. Everyone is a teacher in this world. Some people you like and some you don't. And for all of you listening to this show right now, I personally give you my 5-star review because I know how hard it is sometimes to be who you are doing the things you do. I personally give you my highest rating because you are doing what you can to change the world, even if it's in your own way inside your circle of friends or family. And even if you're alone, you're listening to a personal growth show, doing what you can to change yourself. That is sometimes the hardest part of all of this, changing ourselves. But you deserve my highest rating because you are doing the best you can with the resources you have. Sure, you'll mess up sometimes. Sure, you'll feel like you've failed, but every step you take to improve yourself is a step in the right direction. The failures show up to strengthen and mold you to be the person you need to be for the wins ahead. When the successes happen, you can thank all the times that you felt like a failure. For that, you get my highest review. To view the challenges of the past as stepping stones into the future takes amazing determination, strength, and intelligence. 5 stars all the way. You are worthy. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I think, what is that? Beta? I'm not sure. And Ree and Grace and Kristen, Greg, Michael, Tim, and Jade on Facebook. And then Wanda on Pinterest. And a direct message from Martin and Deanna and Farouk subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank both of you. And for those who subscribe to the newsletter, JDS, Matthew, and Dave. So keep up with the show by heading over to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and sign up for your weekly personal growth message. And feel free to reach out to me through the contact link on that site as well. I want to thank the listeners who are using the Amazon link on the site to support the show. Just do what you already do and shop at Amazon, but use the link theoverwhelmedbrain.com/Amazon to say thank you. If you receive value from this show, click on the link before you make your next purchase from them. Your shopping is making a difference, and it's going towards a good cause. You. And if I didn't call your name in this episode, just know that I appreciate you and thank you for being there for me, listening, learning, and growing. And you are 5 stars, believe me. Hey, it's another 2-part coaching show. What's the deal? Was that reviewer right? Am I playing too many interviews and coaching sessions? Let me know. What do you want to hear? I'd love to know your thoughts. I really do enjoy doing the solo shows because they allow me to articulate what I know carefully and concisely. Everything I say has a purpose, whereas in interviews and coaching episodes, I'm more freeform. But everything I do, I have you in mind. Weekly and sometimes daily, I get your messages letting me know how much your life has changed or is changing from something you learned on this show. This touches me to no end and motivates me to continue. It also reminds me that I'm going in the right direction, so it helps keep my vision and purpose clear. I appreciate all that you are, even the parts of yourself that you may not particularly like, whether that's your body or something you did in the past or something you're doing now or whatever. You have been created with purpose because every cell in your body has a job and wants to exist. I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about yourself as a collection of cells all working to make sure you live. That's their job, to do their absolute best to keep you going. So if you ever think that you have no purpose, remember that every part of you has a purpose, and you are the sum of those parts. And then when you think that, just like the purpose of a single cell in your body is you have a purpose too, because you are part of something bigger than yourself. What is bigger than you where your purpose is fulfilled? Or if you don't feel that you're there yet, find something bigger than you that allows you to fulfill a purpose. Step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Because when you do this, you'll discover what I already know to be true about you. That you are amazing.